Ratatouille wins. Okay, alright. Why am I doing these two films, given that they have almost nothing in common and were released about 7 or 8 months apart? Well, the first reason is a lot of people actually do consider Flushed Away to be a ripoff of Ratatouille. And the second reason is, while I do love all Disney and Pixar films, well, almost all of them, as tough a choice as it is given their nearly spotless record, I think Ratatouille is actually my favorite Disney and Pixar film. And I know that may seem like an odd choice, but it just hits all the right chords with me. Although it does occur to me that if you ever found someone who had somehow never seen one of these films, it'd be almost impossible to describe the plot to them without sounding retarded, especially with something like Ratatouille. I mean, can you imagine how the pitch for this film went?
What if we had the film take place in France?
Oh, okay, France is a good place for a film.
And the main character can be a rat who really likes to cook.
A rat?
Yeah, but no one would take him seriously as a chef because he's a rat, right?
Well, no, I wouldn't.
So he'll meet this garbage boy in a restaurant in France, and they'll team up and make fine cuisine. Like, everyone will think the garbage boy is cooking, but really it'll be the rat.
How are they gonna... I don't really get how they're gonna fool people.
No, I've got that all figured out. See, he'll control him by pulling on his hair.
Are you drunk?
This should not work, but it does, and only a company like Pixar could pull that off. Why do Pixar films work? Well, part of it probably is the quirky, bizarre storylines. They definitely make the film stand out. Even with something like Cars, I mean, it doesn't really work, but you can't argue that it's not creative. They take risks, and most of the time it pays off. But it's not only that. Everything in Pixar films stand out. The characters are great, they have a good sense of humor, and a lot of quirky charm.
Who can hope to compete with that? Well, let's talk about an animated film company. One of the two largest film companies for animation in America. And let's say that they decided to team up with a smaller company, known mostly for their unique charm and quirky short films. What do you get?
No. Actually, I was talking about these guys.
When Aardman decided to move from short films to full-length features, there were a lot of companies in America that wanted to work with them. Dreamworks won out because Katzenberg was the most persistent.
In ideal circumstances, Dreamworks teaming up with Aardman would have been able competition for Disney and Pixar. And the first two films the companies released were pretty damn good. The problem, well, there were probably a lot of problems, but I imagine it had something to do with the fact that Dreamworks doesn't really, well, they aren't Disney and they never will be. That, and apparently Dreamworks and Aardman were not very compatible. The two companies had a 5-film contract. Flushed Away was their 3rd film and their last. The experience between the two companies was so bad during production that the companies split before the film was even released, claiming creative differences.
I didn't see Flushed Away until just recently. Never had any desire to. At least I never had a desire to until I found out that one half of the production companies responsible for it was Aardman. And that's the 3rd reason I decided to do this comparison. I love Aardman. So, what happens when you take one of my favorite animated films and pit it up against one of my favorite animated film companies? Let's find out.
Alright, well, there are a few things the films have in common. One being that the main character in both movies is a rat. Also, both characters are whisked out of a life they know via a sewer for a new, radically different one. The main character in Ratatouille is Remy. Remy has a heightened sense of taste and smell, and because of this, he's the poison checker for the rest of his clan. But he's not content with this, or just eating garbage like the rest of his family. He wants to create something, and is interested in cuisine and cooking, particularly following the teachings of the great French chef Gusteau. I think Remy's pretty much up to standards for Pixar. He's likable and has a quirky personality. One thing to note is his strange imaginary chef and the image of Gusteau himself, who sort of acts like his conscience or mentor. Isn't that odd? He's also a pretty receptive character in that he's a natural genius with food and intelligent, but not above having to learn the occasional lesson. I have to admit, Remy is not actually my favorite character in this movie, and although I'm sure it still would have been good otherwise, I'm kinda glad he's not the only focus. The other main character, or maybe he's a support character, I don't know, is Linguini. Alfredo Linguini, apparently. Not kidding, that's totally his name. I love this guy. I usually enjoy these dorky, hopeless, clumsy characters when they're done well, but one thing I love about Linguini is that he doesn't ever really stop being clumsy and hopeless. Normally with characters like this, no one really believes in them, and then by the end of the film they prove them wrong, kind of like with Flick in A Bug's Life, or Flint in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Anyways, that's sort of what happens here, except that Linguini isn't actually doing any of the stuff that's impressing people. He ends the film more bold and confident, but as talentless as he starts. And there's something sort of hilarious about that. Actually, I find nearly everything about this character hilarious. I definitely laugh the hardest when he's on screen. Plus, I always like the fact that this guy who can barely walk is such a genius on skates. What a nice little detail. Although, it is a little odd that he's the only human character who doesn't have a French accent, apart from Ego. Oh well, it is still Disney. The love interest, that is to say Linguini's love interest, not Remy's, is Colette, and she's pretty likable too. Colette is a chef, and a scary one at that.
No, you listen. I just want you to know exactly who you are dealing with. How many women do you see in this kitchen?
Well,
Only me. Why do you think that is?
Well,
Because haute cuisine is an antiquated hierarchy built upon rules written by stupid old men. Rules designed to make it impossible for women to enter this world. But still I'm here. How did this happen?
because you,
Because I am the toughest cook in this kitchen. I have worked too hard for too long to get here, and I am not going to jeopardize it for some garbage boy who got lucky. Got it?
Go home!
She's put in charge of overseeing Linguini's cooking career. The romance is not really the main focus of the story, probably for the best, as it is slightly cliche, but most of the scenes with her and Linguini are enjoyably funny.
We are together.
Then what are you doing?
It's very hard to explain.
The villain is, well, I can't say he's spectacular as far as villains go, although he does have a few really funny scenes.
Taunting me with that rat.
Rat?
Yes, he's consorting with it, deliberately trying to make me think it's important.
The rat.
Exactly.
Is the rat important?
Of course not. He just wants me to think that it is. Oh, I see the theatricality of it. A rat appears on the boy's first night. I order him to kill it. And now he wants me to see it everywhere. Ooh, ooh, it's here. No, it isn't. It's here. Am I seeing things? Am I crazy? Is there a phantom rat or is there not? But oh, no. I refuse to be sucked into his little game of...
Should I be concerned about this?
As a character, he doesn't really stand out much. I mean, he's really just after money. Not that interesting. It is sort of hilarious to see a chef in this role, I guess, because his evil acts basically consist of making frozen foods. Ooh, scary. Better is the pseudo-villain Anton Ego, who looks the part and has the voice, but turns out not really being a villain at all. Actually, I find this character pretty fascinating, mainly because he has very little screen time and still manages to leave a lasting impression. Honestly, that scene at the end of the film with his review may be that last little thing that sort of pushes this movie to the top of the list for me. I mean, the whole thing is excellent, but I've always found that scene in particular really charming.
In the past, I have made no secret of my disdain for Chef Gusteau's famous motto, "Anyone can cook." But I realize only now do I truly understand what he meant. Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere.
Maybe I just really like that quote. Or maybe it's just that voice. Man, that's a great voice.